Hello and welcome again to the Grid. I'm joined again. I'm Mike Foreman, a sports writer for the Advocate, and back again is Marcus Gutierrez, a sports writer for the Advocate. He missed last week's. He was doing some duty up in Rosenberg, right?
Yep, went to cover Victoria West, so you were here by yourself and you did a good job. I watched. But now we're back here,
Yeah.
ready to talk about this week's set of games.
Yeah, we're already in week 6 of the season, and this is, of course, a slow week because a lot of teams have byes this week as they get ready to start district. But starting next week, everybody will be in district play, so these games really matter now. And starting out with, speaking of District 27-5A, we've got the Calhoun Sand Crabs coming to Victoria to play West. West, of course, was shut out in its opener that you saw against Foster, and Calhoun got a win over Lamar Consolidated. So this is obviously a big game for both teams because if Calhoun could go 2-0, it would take a big step toward the playoffs. And obviously West doesn't want to go 0-2.
Yeah, this is big for both teams. Both teams are off to a different start, like you said. The Calhoun may be surprising us a little bit more at 3-1 with quality wins so far, and like you said, they defeated Lamar Consolidated. West is not doing that well. It was probably about the same time last year that both these teams met, and about the same thing was happening with West. A young team, and we see that young team again. Against Foster, they really took a while for them to get any kind of offense going. But then anytime they got something going, a turnover would happen, maybe a fumble or something like that would maybe get their spirits down as a young team. But you look at Calhoun, they have a lot of underclassmen. I talked to Coach Whitaker. He told me about nine players, underclassmen, are playing on the defense, which is really good. Their defense has stepped up really good this well. So it's going to be a battle. It's going to come down to, can West stop that Calhoun offense? They saw a similar offense with Lockhart. They had a little trouble with that. They contained it, but Lockhart was able to get a few scores like that, and Calhoun has that ability to break one or two and go to the house.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it's hard to prepare for that offense in a week's time. And basically last year, as you saw what happened, turnovers were key in that game. And I think Calhoun's very aware of that. If it doesn't turn the ball over, its offense is pretty productive. So whether or not West can take advantage on offense of Calhoun's defense, that'll be a big key for them. And then, of course, we have Victoria East, which had a bye last week. Now the Titans open district, and they get a tough task right away. They've got to travel to Angleton. And Angleton just shellacked Rosenberg Terry in its district opener. In fact, the Wildcats, who are ranked, I think, number 7 in the state poll, they've only given up 7 points all season, and that was kind of a late touchdown to Angleton. So the East offense is really going to be tested, and we don't even have to mention the defense because, B.J. Foster, a Texas commit, is going to be tough to stop. So, East right off the bat is going to get a really tough test.
Yeah, we're going to see where they are as a team. Their last 2 games they played, they had to go to overtime to get those wins. So this is going to be a true test. Like you said, B.J. Foster, you got Tamarick Williams. They have a big offensive line and defensive line. So it's going to be a true test for them to see where they're at. We know that they can come from behind, but going against that town like Angleton, it's going to be a tough match. But it's their first district opener against probably the best team in the district.
Yeah, so we'll see after Friday, I think, just where he stands in this thing. And of course, there's still a long ways to go. And in a 7-team district like that, one loss won't kick you out. But you definitely want to get started. And if you remember last season, East was actually very competitive against Angleton.
That's right.
So we'll see if this year they can match up with the Wildcats or not. And, you and I yesterday, we were in Yoakum, Texas. We were there to watch Josh Moore get his Under Armour All-American jersey. He will be playing in the game, which is in January out in Florida. And but he's got some business at hand on Friday night. the Bulldogs are going to host Edna. And that's a big district game. Last year I covered that game in Edna. Edna actually defeated the Bulldogs. So, Josh made a comment about that. He remembers that. Edna is getting better every week in their slot T offense that Coach Jerry Long brought over with him. So this could be a good test for Edna because I believe they saw the slot T in their first game of the season against Hondo, but I don't think they've seen it since then. So this would be a good test for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, that type of offense is always tough to prepare for because you never know what's coming. But the Bulldogs, they have some confidence. Last week they played Housefull, got a big 13-12 win, came right down to the wire. So the Bulldogs have started out this year a lot better than that last year in 2-4 when they turned things around again after the Edna game. So their offensive line is a lot better than the defensive line. But going against that best team in that district, Housefull, now we know how good they can be.
Yeah, and Housefull, of course, they were right there with it. And Housefull plays Palacios. That's a game Housefull should win, but I know they got to watch out for any hangover from the Yoakum game. I know that's a tough loss, but if history repeats itself, those two could meet again. So there's a chance they could see that, and I think Coach Pensick at Housefull realizes that, and they want to bounce back quickly. The game, though, that in that district that I find intriguing is Rice and Van Vleck, because the winner of that game, that could determine a playoff spot, actually. So that's a big game for both teams, and it's an interesting game because both teams have a lot of athletes. Both teams will throw the ball, so that could be a high-scoring affair, and it may come down to which team's defense plays better, actually. And then moving on as we go through last week, perhaps one of the biggest surprises in the state, although the Tidehaven Tigers weren't surprised. They defeated East Bernard, and I read somewhere that was East Bernard's first district loss in like 6 years. Incredible win for Tidehaven, really big win for the program. I know Coach David Lucio is trying to get that rolling again. This is only his second season, but they've been through an off season with him. So they go to Danbury this week, and if they take care of business, that'll set up another showdown for them next week against Bowling with quarterback Vernon Jackson, who I believe is committed to Alabama, hasn't he?
Yes, he has committed to Alabama.
Yeah, so he's quite an athlete, and that'll be a good test for Tidehaven. But right now, of course, Tidehaven has to focus on Danbury. The other game in that district is the Bobcats from Bloomington, who got off to a little bit of a rough start against Brazos. But Bloomington plays Schulenburg, and because of Hurricane Harvey, Bloomington is playing all its home games in Port Lavaca at Sandcrab Stadium. So that's where they'll be playing Schulenburg. And I know the Bobcats, that's kind of tough not to have a home game.
Yeah, that community is dealing with a lot right now. A win would do a lot for that community. That leisure time that people have, I'm pretty sure they'll try to make it to the game and hope for a Bobcat win.
Yeah, I know that, I know Adam Arroyo is dealing with a lot down there, and he's just trying to keep it going right now. And as we move on, last week I went to Geronimo, Texas. First time I ever covered a game there. Watched Refugio and Navarro. Navarro handed Refugio its first loss this season, just like it did last year. It was a good game, very competitive. Refugio had its chances, but just it's still showing a little bit of inconsistency on offense and defense. And I think once the Bobcats work those things out, they're going to be fine. And I was looking for something, and I found an interesting statistics as I went and looked back. The last time a Refugio football team lost back-to-back games was in 2004. So, I mean, that shows you just how good that program has been. I mean, that's amazing. And Refugio this week goes to Kingsville. It's playing Santa Gertrudis Academy. Most of the other teams in that district have a bye But I know Coach Jason Herring, he does not like to go into district off a bye.
Mm-hmm.
So he always schedules his bye week at a different time so he can play the week before district.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to play Santa Gertrudis this week, which played St. Joseph, beat St. Joseph.
Yeah.
And so Refugio and Santa Gertrudis at one time were actually in the same district. But that'll be an interesting game. And speaking of the Flyers, they got their first win last week.
Mm-hmm.
They beat San Antonio TMI behind just an outstanding game from quarterback Jacob Bordowski.
Mm-hmm.
And the Flyers now go to Katy for their final non-district game where they play Katy, St. John the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
And that team is 0-4. And it has lost. Two of those losses have come to Lutheran South and Second Baptist, which are, those two teams are in St. Joseph's district.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be a good way for the Flyers to kind of gauge where they're at going in the district.
I got to talk to Coach Hall and his players. Coach Hall said that it was very, the offense was fluent. It looked like everything's getting better. Jacob said that the line was doing great blocking, and then they just dominated the game, which is what you want to do during the game. But Mike Hall, he really emphasized how dominant his offensive defensive line that was able to make things happen. He says the skilled players have always been there doing their thing, but that line of scrimmage really helped the Flyers win that game.
So I guess we got to give credit to Coach David Hartman, huh?
Mm-hmm.
He's got those big guys in the trenches going there. I know David really likes to coach them up in the trenches there. So that'll help if St. Joseph, I think, has a good shot at another win this week, which would give it a little momentum going into district, because I think they host Westbury Christian next week in their district opener, and you want to go into district on a high note, not a low note.
Yeah, Coach Hall said that they're good right now. They missed their first scrimmage in their first game, but he says that now the team's ready to go, and that this game will be a true test to see where they're at before they handle district. So it's gonna be interesting to see. Those other two teams have beat them, so we're gonna see the margin.
Yeah.
What St. Joseph can do.
Yeah, and of course this week, as we talked about, is kind of a slow week,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll still have all the scores for you on Friday night on our Cover It Live, and we'll have our report, of course, in the grid on Sunday, as we always do. And next week, it starts for real. I mean, we have every team that we cover will be in district play next
Mm-hmm.
week. That means that you can start thinking about the playoffs, really, and this is when it counts. I mean, you want to do as well as you can in pre-district, but obviously what you're trying to do is prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, with a hurricane this year, I think that really affected the conditioning for every
Mm-hmm.
team. And now as the season starts to go on, I think teams are getting into better condition. You'll see a little bit better execution from
Mm-hmm.
teams, as they won't wear down so much in the fourth quarter. But that should do it for this week of the grid. And like I said, we'll be back next week when all our teams begin district play.